Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutaparakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vidam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisa Gopika Kantha Radha Kantha Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustuti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Panglungram Hayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamham Vande Sri Gurundinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyeshwaram Katanchana Smrite Yasmin Dushkaram Sukaram Bhavet Vismrite Viparitam Shat Sri Chaitanya Namamitam Hare Krishna. So Hare Krishna, the devotees, uh, because today, the 31st of December 2020, this evening, I have some other engagement by which I cannot give the direct online class. So I'm making this recording. So for the second batch of English Baptist Study of the VCO. So any question on today's class, I mean on this class, you can ask in our next class, which will be on Sunday, in the beginning of the next class. So you can ask whatever question you have regarding today's class. You make a note of it, and then we will start our next class with some discussion of uh, if any question. If any question, you can ask in the beginning of the next class. Thank you very much. So in our previous class, we were discussing about, we're still in the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. We were discussing about the transformation from karma kanda to karma yoga. And we ended up the class in text number 14. Yeah, here, just touching a little bit on this text. Anad bhavanti bhutani parjanyat anasambhavaha yagyat bhavanti parjanyo yagya karma samudbhavaha. Translation: all living bodies subsist on food grains which are produced by rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagya or sacrifice, and yagya is born of prescribed duties. So in the purpose of Prabhupada mentioned, the Lord can be satisfied by sacrifices. Therefore, one who cannot perform them will find himself in scarcity. That is the law of nature. Yagya, specifically the Sankirtan Yagya prescribed for this age, but must be performed to save us at least from scarcity of food supply. So we were discussing some pastimes of Srila Prabhupada when there was drought in Hyderabad. So Srila Prabhupada sent a Harinam party to Hyderabad and performed Sankirtan, Jagya Nagar Sankirtan in Hyderabad. And immediately after that, there was a very heavy rainfall. And also we were talking uh, during Srila Prabhupada's childhood. So there was a leprosy all over in Calcutta. And there was one Babaji. Uh, he organized one Harinam Sankirtan party and performed Sankirtan, Nagar Sankirtan around Kolkata. And immediately after that, just few days after that, the this famine, this disease disappeared. So that is the power of Harinam Sankirtan. So we're talking about that in our previous class. And yeah, Srila Prabhupada gave an analogy in his purport. Srila Prabhupada said, when there is an epidemic disease, an antiseptic vaccine protects a person from the attack of such an epidemic. Similarly, food offered to Vishnu, to Lord Vishnu, and then asked by us, make us, and then taken by us, sorry, and then taken by us makes us sufficiently resistant to material affection. So we were discussing also the importance of only taking Krishna Prasadam. So if we simply chase on these two processes, namely chanting of the holy name and taking Krishna Prasadam only, then we will be free from the influence of Krishna's material energy, which is Maya. What is that verse by Rupa Goswami? Atha Sri Krishna Namadi Na Bhavet Grahya Mindriyahi. Sevan Mukesh Jivadav Swayam Evas Puratyara. So first, when our senses still contaminated, we cannot understand Krishna, cannot understand Krishna's pastimes, how great is the holy name, because our senses still contaminated. But when our senses becomes purified, then only we can understand who Krishna really is. And then to purify the senses, it's actually begin from the tongue. So there are two functions of the tongue. One is to vibrate sound, and the another one is to taste. So the sound that we need to always vibrate from our tongue is the holy name, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and the only food that should be tasted by our tongue is Krishna Prasadam. So in this way, we can be immune, actually, immune from the attack of Maya. This is a lecture from Srila Prabhupada. So this yagya, formerly yagya, was performed very gorgeously. So many mounds of ghee and grains were put into the fire. But in this age, Kali Yuga, there is neither ghee nor grains to offer in a fire, yagya fire. Therefore, in this Kali Yuga, the yagya is performed by chanting of the holy name of the Lord, by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Kriteya Dhyayato Vishnu. Tretayam Yajato Makaihi Dwapare Paricharyayam Kalautadhari Kirtana. So Kalautadhari Kirtana. In the age of Kali Yuga, the Yuga Dharma is Hari Kirtan. Okay, we will continue to text number 15. This is still in the discussion of from the to elevate ourselves from Karma Kanda level to Karma Yoga. Text 15. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. In the purports that Prabhupada mentioned, we should always remember that the conditioned souls in material nature are all eager for material enjoyment. Yeah. But the Vedic directions are so made that one can satisfy one's perverted desires, then return to Godhead, having finished his so-called enjoyment. So why we are here? Because we have material desire. And as Srila Prabhupada very oftenly explained that the root cause of our existence in this material world is sexual desire, sex, lust. So that's actually the beginning. So what is love in the spiritual world? When perverted here in the material world, that becomes lust. What people know as love in this material world is actually, that's simply lust. That's simply lust, because the idea is that how I can please my senses more. How can I please my senses? So self-centered. When one becomes self-centered, so everything is about me and whatever related to me. But first of all, everything is about me. So this is lust. So Srila Prabhupada mentioned here, everybody is eager for material enjoyment in this material world. But by following the rules and regulation, which is enacted in the scriptures, in the Vedas, so in this way, actually, um, well, because we have some tendency to enjoy the senses, so we can enjoy, but at the same time, we have to follow rules and regulation. Just like everybody, everybody, doesn't matter whether human being, animals, or aquatic, everybody in the material world, even including Lord Brahma himself, actually uh, very strongly inclined to sexual activities, everybody. But to regulate that, there should be marriage. So sex is not forbidden as long as it is still within marriage. And that also, the purpose of sex is to create Krishna conscious children, so not otherwise. So we can enjoy sex. And Srila Prabhupada, uh, in one lecture, he mentioned that the Krishna consciousness movement is not prohibiting sex. Sex is allowed, but it should be within marriage. So within marriage, this is rules and regulation. So we can have sex, but we have to get married. So we don't have sex like the cats and dogs. And by following these rules and regulation, as enacted in the Vedas, because actually the Vedas enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, dharmam tu saksat Bhagavad pranitam, na vai vidu risayana pideva, nashida mukhya ashra manusha, tonu vidya dara charanadaya. So dharma, religious principles, is actually created by Krishna, by Bhagavan, not by great rishis or demigods. Well, the great rishis may seems to compile the Vedas, but they get some revelation from Krishna. Like Lord Brahma, he got revelation from Krishna. Vyasadeva got revelation also from Krishna. Anyway, Vyasadeva is Lord Krishna himself. He's the incarnation of Krishna. So, like Varnashram also, we follow Varnashram because this system is created by Krishna. Chaturvarnamaya Shrestha Guna Karma Vibhagasaha. So this Varnashram is actually a nice system. Srila Prabhupada explained in many places, in many lectures. Srila Prabhupada mentioned that this Varnashram is a nice system. Just like, for example, I live here in India, so I must follow certain rules and regulation here in India made by the Indian government. So in that way, my life will be peaceful here in India. But if I start to violate some rules and regulations, so I may get some punishment, go to the jail, get some fine and whatsoever. So similarly, Varnashram is meant for those who are still conditioned, meant for those who are still conditioned. And it's actually nice rules and within the Varnashram system. It is a nice system created by Krishna. It is just like when we purchase a new television or a new car or motorbike, whatever electronic device. And there must be, along with that package, we will get what we call that manual book, by which actually this book giving us guidance, how to utilize it, how to operate it. So similarly, when we live in the material world, so this Varnashram system is one of the kind of this, what do you call this book? What I mentioned earlier? Yeah, manual book. So this is the manual book, a guide for us to live peacefully. But if we don't follow, then we'll get some kind of punishment, you know. So by following Varnashram, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explained actually even the devotees must follow Varnashram because Bhaktivinoda Thakur explained that as long as one still on the sadhana level, sadhaka, sadhaka means one who is still on the sadhana level performing sadhana bhakti. So he must follow Varnashram. They must follow Varnashram. And also not only Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also emphasizing so much about Varnashram. That's why he's taking up sannyas and giving Brahman initiation, because at that time people they didn't follow Varnashram. Uh, People are mostly becoming Babaji. They are taking Babaji Vaishya. So they don't follow rules and regulation in terms of rules and regulation enacted in the Vedas, in the Shastra. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, so he took sannyas order, you see, and he gave second initiation, Brahman Diksha, to his disciples. So in this way, actually, we can live peacefully in the material world when we follow this system, Varnashram system. Of course, in Krishna consciousness, we are following the Varnashram. It should be understood very clearly that we are following not material Varnashram, but Daiva Varnashram. Atapum Vidvija Srista Varnashrama Vibhagasa Swanustita Siddharmasya Samsidir Haritosanam. So why you are following Varnashram? Because we want to please Krishna by following this Varnashram. Ultimately, our goal is to please Krishna, because there's no point that we becoming simply a moralist, but we don't try to please Krishna. So we follow Varnashram to please Krishna because we connect whatever our activities to please Krishna. So that is called Daiva Varnashram. And Sastra, the Vedas, sometimes known as also known as Sastra. Sastra means actually weapon. So weapon, this weapon, this Vedas, this Sastra, is actually a guide also for us by which we can cut off the material attachment. Yad anudyashina yukta karma granti nibanana chindanti ko vidastasya kona kuryat katharati. So karma granti means the knot, the bound of karmic reaction, and this is very very strong. Yad anudya ashina yukta. So one should cut off this knot with the acts of devotion to Krishna. So in the Shastra, ultimately, the conclusion uh, that we have to obtain by studying Shastra or scriptures is to know our relationship with Krishna, that is called Sambandha, and act accordingly, that is called Avidya. And Prayojana is to develop uh, our love to Krishna, and ultimately, as the byproduct, I would say like that, the byproduct is that we get liberation from material bondage. So even those who are liberated also should follow rules and regulation in the Vedas, although they are not obliged. So we'll discuss this a bit more later. So text number 16. My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice thus established by the Vedas certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for sense gratification of the senses, such a person lives in vain. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned, therefore the yagyas are directly aimed at the particular demigods mentioned in the Vedas. Indirectly, it is the practice of Krishna consciousness, because when one masters the performance of yagyas, one is sure to become Krishna conscious. But if by performing yagyas, one does not become Krishna conscious, Such principles are counted as only moral code. One should not therefore limit his progress only to the point of moral code, but should transcend them to attain Krishna consciousness. So in the initial stage, karma kanda is okay. Karma kanda is okay for those who are having very less information, having less inclination towards spiritual life, very much attached to sense verification. So karma kanda is fine. Worshipping the demigods is okay. It's still okay. Better. It is better than nothing. It is better than simply enjoying the senses without recognizing there is a higher authority who's supplying all our needs. So karma kanda is fine in the beginning stage, as Srila Prabhupada mentioned here. Actually, the demigod worshippers, they are indirectly also worshipping Krishna, because we've been discussing this in a class earlier, that few classes earlier, that ultimately Krishna is the sanction giver. So when somebody worships a demigod, a particular demigod, so this demigod, before he gives the boon to his worshipper, so he has to get a sanction from Krishna. So otherwise he cannot give the boon. So indirectly, actually, they are uh, practicing Krishna consciousness. I heard one explanation from one senior devotee, mentioned that when somebody worships the demigod, so this demigod will offer it to Krishna. So this demigod is not simply enjoying uh, that offering by himself. So that's what I heard. So as Srila Prabhupada also mentioned here, when one masters the performance of yajna, one is sure to become Krishna conscious. But if by performing yagyas one does not become Krishna conscious, such principles are counted as only moral code. It is interesting that Devahuti in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam mentioned Nihayat karma dharmaya na viragaya kalpate na tirtha pada sevayam jivanapim rito hi saha. So Nihayat karma dharmaya. If any activity does not lead one to become religious, so it's useless. Nihayat karma dharma na viragaya kalpate. And any religious activity, if doesn't lead someone to become a vairagi or a renounced person, so that religious activity is useless. Natirthapada sevaya. If after one gets detachment, after one becomes detached from material world, but that detachment doesn't lead one to tirthapada seva or engagement in devotional service to Lord Krishna, then jivan apim rito hisaha. Such a person, although he is breathing, considered to be dead. Just like the what you call this bellows. So this bellows normally nowadays we don't find it so much because everybody is cooking using gas stove. So earlier, so people used to cook with firewood. So to blow it, there is one device called bellows. So this bellows is like breathing, blowing some air. Like when we breathe, also we blow some air. But this bellow is a dead matter. I mean, like it is not a living entity, not living being. It just matter. It's dead thing. But he's breathing it. But it's breathing. So similarly, those who are not engaging in devotional service, ultimately, so although he's breathing, he's considered to be dead because his life is useless. So this is the gradual process actually by which one can become Krishna conscious by performing sacrifices to please the demigods. So gradually one gets some kind of punya, piety, and when one chants actually this mantra, Om, any mantra, normally begins with Om. So this Om actually represent Krishna. So indirectly they are worshipping Krishna. And the second part of our today's class will be from text 17 to 35. Yeah. So this is about karma yoga, performing prescribed work in detachment to set example. So this is more into niskama karma because because somebody is performing his duty, his activities, but detached from the result. But here, uh, yeah, it is mentioned as karma yoga because the idea of karma yoga means we are connecting our activities in Krishna consciousness. So we will see how Krishna will encourage Arjuna to fight by giving a reason that you must follow your prescribed duty just to set up the example to the common man, to the whole world. So we'll find the verse Yadhyada Charati Shrestha in this section. In this verses 17 through 21, Krishna describes the position of a self-realized person in relation to work. Although the self-realized person need not perform prescribed duties, he continues working to set the example for common man to follow. Krishna uses himself as an example to show that even God works according to scripture to set the standard for others to follow. Krishna also describes how a knowledgeable person should relate to ignorant men who are attached to fruitive results. A devotee should encourage people by his words and example to engage the result of their work in devotional service. Arjuna is finally advised to fight with devotion for Krishna and become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. Krishna concludes his explanation of karma yoga by warning Arjuna not to give up his prescribed duties, though there may be some imperfection. He explains that everyone is forced to act according to their nature. Okay, this is text number 17. But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated. For him, there is no duty. So this is a description of one who is fully satisfied in Krishna consciousness. That means those kind of people who are engaged in devotional service on the pure level. So they don't desire any material desire. They have no material desire because they fully satisfied in themselves in the sense of because they are engaging themselves in Krishna consciousness. This is called Atmarama. Well, but we find also in the Srimad Bhagavatam that there are some those who are non-devotees. They also self-realize. Those who are Mayavadis, they are also self-realized. They are fully satisfied with themselves. You know, they have no material desire. But even then, also those who are Atmarama, the example is that like Sukadev Goswami. It is described that Sukadev Goswami in the beginning he is a impersonalist. He's an impersonalist, and yet he's fully satisfied within himself. He is an Atmarama. But sometimes also I'm wondering, Sukadev Goswami, he's the parrot of Srimati Radharani. That means he's a devotee. But why the Bhagavatam described that Sukadev Goswami as impersonalist? Why? So this is a homework for all of you to get some research, and I'm hoping to get some answer uh, in the next class. why. But anyway, it is described in the Bhagavatam, Atmaramaschamunayo nirgranta apirukrami kurwantyahai tukim bhaktim itam guna bhuto harihi. So even though somebody is already on the platform of Atmaram, fully satisfied with himself, within himself, but still itam bhuta guno harihi. That person can be attracted by the good qualities of Lord Hari and perpetually. Uh, and ultimately they will engage in Krishna service. So the example given is Sukadev Goswami. So regarding my question, so you can do some research and get back to me on the next class. So this is the description of those who are fully satisfied in themselves, Krishna conscious. Sometimes a question may raise, why is a fully Krishna conscious person not obliged to follow the Vedic injunctions? Well, he is not obliged to follow, but to set up the example to the whole world. So he must follow, actually. He should follow. But he is not obliged. Why? Because, Srila Prabhupada explained, by such clearing of consciousness, one becomes fully confident of his eternal position in relationship with the Supreme. His duty thus becomes self-illuminated by the grace of the Lord, and therefore he no longer has any obligations to the Vedic injunction. This is the description of pure devotee. So a pure devotee does not, I mean like, he is not obliged to follow any rules and regulation in the Vedas because he's pure, he's untouched by any material thing. But for those who are still on the sadhaka level, like all of us mostly, so we must follow. And to follow rules and regulation while performing devotional service also good. What is that? Shruti Smriti Purana Adi Pancharata Vidimina Aikantiki Harir Bhakti Utpattayaiva Kalpate. So Rupa Goswami explained that if one performs devotional service but not following the rules and regulation mentioned in the Shruti, Smriti, Purana, and Pancharatra, so his actions simply create disturbance in the society. Because, uh, of course, when somebody is on the pure platform, so it does not oblige to follow the Vedic rules and regulation mentioned in the Vedas, but still good to follow because the common man will see our activities, how we behave, how we behave. If we behave properly, nicely in the society, and at the same time we are Krishna conscious, that's actually a great tool for preaching. People appreciating our good activities, behavior, and they will see, they will appreciate that, oh yeah, this Hare Krishna people, they are so nice. Text number 18. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. These verses describe an Atmarati, one who takes pleasure in the self. So verses means from the 17 and 18. Such a person is not concerned with loss or gain while performing his duty, nor is he disturbed by obstacles. So those who are pure devotees, so they are actually independent. They they completely satisfied in Krishna consciousness. They are unbound, okay, by rules and regulation, by any material prescribed duties, swadharma, material swadharma. So, but still, even those who are pure devotee, when they perform their prescribed duties according to material swadharma, their material swadharma, they don't attach with the result. This is called niskama karma yoga, or pure devotional service. You do something, but you don't attach. to the result of the activities. But karma yoga means just like this verse, yad yada charati what is that? Sorry. Uh, what is the verse next to after the patram puspam palampayam? Oh, yad karosi yad asnasi. Yeah, this is the one. Yad karosi yad asnasi yad juhosi tadasyat yata pasyashi kauntya tad kuruswa madarpanam. So this verse, it is described that this is actually karma yoga, not bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is the 9.26 patram puspam palampayam, because we offer what Krishna wants. That is bhakti. But karma yoga is we offer what we want to offer to Krishna. But still, at the same time, we have the tendency to enjoy the result of the activities, yet we don't want to disconnect that activities with Krishna. Therefore, it is called karma yoga. Devotional, motivated, materially motivated devotional service is known as karma yoga. But pure devotional service is called niskama karma yoga, because we simply do it for Krishna. We are detached from the result. Our only motivation is spiritual motivation, just to please Krishna. Text number 19. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for working without attachment, one attains the supreme. So, attachment is actually the cause of our bondage in the material world. So, any small attachment that's still there in our heart is actually a stumbling block by which we can get liberation, attain the supreme personality of Godhead. In the second chapter, Krishna advised to Arjuna, Karma nevadikaraste ma phalesu kadachana ma karma phala hetur mate sangostva karmani. Just perform your duty without attachment to the result, because you are not entitled for the result. Everything is arranged by Krishna. Everything is decided by Krishna. Ma karma phala hetur mate sangostva karmani. And Krishna said to Arjuna that don't get used to not performing your duty. That means even a person like Arjuna, a great devotee of the Lord, he must follow whatever material swadharma that he meant to do, just to set up the example. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned, to be a good man or non-violent man is a personal attachment, but to act on behalf of the Supreme is to act without attachment for the result. That is perfect action of the highest degree, recommended by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So, simply becoming a moralist, becoming a good man, this is also an attachment, because our aim is not simply to become a good man. To become a good man is good, but that is not the aim of life. The aim of life is to please Krishna, to act on behalf of Lord Krishna, to act under the direction and order of Lord Krishna. So this is called detachment, because we are working just to please Krishna. Whatever Krishna says, we just follow. Just like here, Arjuna. Of course, violence is something which is not good, but simply to become non-violent, that is material attachment. Higher than that is actually higher than simply becoming moralist, is to please Krishna. So just follow Krishna's order. In that way, we become uh, detached from this material bondage. So in the lecture, Srila Prabhupada mentioned, so a Krishna conscious person acts on behalf of Krishna. These boys, they are going to preach Krishna consciousness. People may receive it or not receive it. Doesn't matter. Their duty is to preach. The fortunate person will be attracted. Unfortunately, the fortunate person will be attracted. Unfortunate may not be attracted, but they have to do the duty. It is very simple. So it is our duty as Srila Prabhupada's follower, Prabhupada Nuga. So just to preach Krishna consciousness, and the result is up to Krishna. Our duty is to preach Krishna consciousness. How many people will come to hear our lecture? It is not our matter. It is not our business. Our business is just to carry on preaching Krishna consciousness. In the beginning, Srila Prabhupada also, sometimes he just give lecture alone in the front of tape recording. Nobody is there. Nobody was there to listen to Srila Prabhupada directly. So he was giving a lecture and just in the front of a tape recording. And later he would broadcast it. He would play it in a radio station. So that was Srila Prabhupada's determination. Nowadays we find if less attendance, I will not give class. Normally, our devotees, they love to give class when there is big audience. But our duty is just to give Krishna Katha, to preach Krishna consciousness. Doesn't matter how many people are there to hear from us. Doesn't matter, because ultimately we are speaking also for our own purification. So there's no loss. Prabhupada continued, my Guru Maharaj used to say, if somebody said that we want to preach in such and such place, only there were 3 or 4 attendants. So my Guru Maharaj used to encourage them, and it is factual that why 2 or 3 men were there was sufficient. If there were none, you could speak and the walls would hear you. You see why you are disappointed. So this is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So he said, if nobody is there, the wall will hear you. Those who live in the wall also will get purification, such as the ants, maybe the germs, bugs, whatever fly around us. They get the benefit. So never get discouraged. Text number 20. Kings such as Janaka attain perfection solely by performance of prescribed duty. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Purport, being a great devotee of the Lord, he was transcendentally situated, but because he was the king of Mithila, a subdivision of Bihar province in India, he had to teach his subjects how to perform prescribed duties. So sometimes we think that uh, we can become a pure devotee when we become materially exhausted. Well, that's true. Janmaishwarya Srita Srivi Edam Anamada Puman Aivahartya Vidatum Vaitvam Akinchana Gocharan. Queen Kunti prays like that. Those who are surrounded by opulence, Janma in the uh, taking birth in a good family, Janma Aishwarya, opulence. Sruta means high education. Sri means beauty, bodily beauty. So normally those who are surrounded by this kind of opulences, they have no inclination to surrender to Krishna. Tuama kinchana gochanam. Krishna is the property of those who are materially exhausted. But that's the general things that we see. But here, great king like Janak Maharaj, they also can become a great devotee. So bhakti is independent. You can become a pure devotee even while floating on the money. While floating on money, you can also become pure devotee like Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Ambarish Maharaj, Janaka Maharaj. In fact, Janaka Maharaj is one of the Mahajans, 12 Mahajanas. So because he's in the position of a king, so he has to teach his subject how to perform their prescribed duties. So when a king act properly according to rules and regulation mentioned in the Vedas, so the common man, his subjects will follow it, will respect the king. Nowadays, our leaders, like the whole world, practically speaking, the whole world, people are disrespecting their leaders. Yeah, because the leaders are corrupted and having bad character. Therefore, the society, they are making a lot of fun to the leaders because they don't behave properly. They don't show that they have good qualities. Actually, to become a leader is a great responsibility. And the biggest responsibility as a leader is that how to make all the citizens, the subject, to be Krishna conscious. In the fourth canto, in the pastime of Prithu Maharaj, there it is described that if a leader or a king can make his subject become Krishna conscious, or at least become good people, becoming good people. So one sixth of his piety will be derived by the king. But if a king failed to do so, if a king failed to make his citizens to be Krishna conscious, or at least good men, good people, so one sixth of their sinful reaction will be also shared to the king. So becoming a king, becoming a leader is not an easy thing. It is such a serious thing, big thing actually. Text number 21. Yeah, this is the famous verse. Yad yad acharati shreshtas tatta devetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanu vartati. Translation. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standard he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Lord Chaitanya said that a teacher should behave properly before he begins teaching. So this is called Acharya. Acharya means one who is teaching by his personal example. This is called Acharya. One who teaches in that way is called Acharya, or the ideal teacher. Therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra or scripture to teach common man. The king or the executive head of a state, the father, and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. All such natural leaders have a greater responsibility to their dependents. Yeah, this is also described in the fifth canto, fifth chapter by Rishabhadev Maharaj. Guru Nasasya Swajano Nasasya. This verse you can find there. How much time we have? More or less about maybe 30 minutes. Text number 22. O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. So Krishna is God. Krishna is independent. Abhigya Swarat. Vyasadeva explained this in the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Is Abhigya and Swarat. Abhigya means his nothing can be covered from him. Abhigya, he knows everything. And Swarat means he's independent. So he's independent, he can do whatever he wants. And there's no rules and regulation binds Krishna. But for the sake of teaching the whole world, even God is having some prescribed duties to do. What is that? Paritranaya sadhunam vinasacha duskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So Krishna has to come in every era, in every age, just to do these three things: to save the devotees, to kill the demons, and to establish the religious principles. So Krishna has to come. In a lecture, Srila Prabhupada said, yes, just see, Krishna, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He worked because we need something. But what need he has? Oh, sorry. Prabhupada said, we work because we need something, but what need he has? He is full, he is self-sufficient, but still he comes. It is stated, yada yada dharmasya. Text 23. For if I ever failed to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. Why did Krishna perform prescribed duties? So this is also related to the previous verse. He is God, he is independent. Why did Krishna perform prescribed duties? Prabhupada explained, although such rules and regulations are for the conditioned souls and not for Lord Krishna, because he descended to establish the principles of religion, he followed the prescribed rules. Otherwise, common man would follow his footsteps because he is the greatest authority. And yeah, one might argue that some of Krishna's action on the battlefield and his behavior in Vrindavan with the gopis do not conform to the recommended sastric path. Krishna is a controversial person. That's why I heard one lecture said that Krishna, he spoke the Bhagavad Gita outside the Vrindavan, because in Vrindavan he is known as uh, a very mischievous personality. He would lie, he would cheat, he would do some mischievous activities, stealing the butter. If he speaks the Bhagavad Gita in Vrindavan, nobody will hear Krishna. Therefore, he is going out from Vrindavan to speak the Bhagavad Gita. That is true, although Krishna generally does not transgress scriptural injunctions, he occasionally does so to please his devotees and to exhibit his supreme independent position. If therefore a discrepancy exists between Krishna's words and Krishna's action, his words should not be followed. No one should imitate Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and act in opposition to Shastra. So, like the example, Krishna steals the dress of the gopis. So, according to moral code, this is actually immoral. It's very bad behavior. The gopis actually, they told Krishna that we will report your behavior to King Kamsa, so Kamsa may punish you. But within their heart, actually, they desire Krishna to become their husband. So sometimes Krishna, he does something which is contradiction to the Shastra, but as it is mentioned here, that he does it because first of all he wanted to please his devotees, like how he stole the gopis' dress because Krishna wanted to please the gopis, or Krishna steals the butter. Uh, when Krishna is stealing butter, actually that is the desire of the gopis, because the gopis they made this butter for Krishna. When Krishna didn't come to steal, so the gopis keep waiting when Krishna will come to steal our butter. So stealing is immoral, but Krishna breaks that law because he wanted to please his devotees. So that's first. Second one is that to show that he is supreme. So any seemingly any immoral thing that Krishna performed, any contradiction that he may do, he will not get any karmic reaction out of it. He will not get it because he's God, he's the supreme. So he's unbound by rules and regulation. Of course, sometimes we see that Krishna in his pastime he got cursed. For example, he got cursed by, who is that? Did Krishna get cursed? Yeah, when he was in pastime of Lord Ram. So he was cursed by Bali, the brother of Sugriva, that in the next life Krishna will be killed from behind, because Krishna sought Bali with his because Lord Ram sought Bali uh, from behind. So that's how Krishna wound up his pastime, that he was sought by Jara, by the hunter at his feet, and then that's how he left the world. So he accept also the curse. He accept that. But in general, we see that he's Swarat is independent, fully independent. Because Bali is actually a devotee of Lord Ram, devotee of Krishna. So Krishna is pleased to take whatever his devotee's word. So Krishna is conquered by his devotee. Satyam vidatum nijabritya bhasitam vyaptim chabute swakile suchatmana. Adrishyata tad bhutarupam udvaham sthambe sabhayam namrigam namanusham. So like Prahlad Maharaj, when he was asked by Hiranyakasipu, where is your God? Prahlad Maharaj said, God is everywhere. And Hiranyakasipu asked, is your God also here in this pillar? And Prahlad Maharaj said, yes, he is in this pillar also. So Lord Nrsimhadev can appear from anywhere. But why he appeared from the pillar? Because Prahlad Maharaj said, yes, he is also residing here. So when Hiranyakasipu hit that pillar, so Satyam Vidatum Nijabritya Bhasitam, in order to keep the word of his pure devotees as a truth, Satyam, Lord Krishna appeared from that pillar as Nrsimhadev. Namrigam Namanusam, Stambe Sabhayam Namrigam Namanusam, in the form of half man, half lion. Interesting. Text number 24. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all the three worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. The Lord is the father of all living entities, and if the living entities are misguided indirectly, their responsibility goes to the Lord. Therefore, whenever there is general disregard of regulative principles, the Lord himself descends and corrects the society. 25. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to result, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. Text 26. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive result of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for gradual development of Krishna consciousness. What qualifications are required for beginning practice of Krishna consciousness? So this is in Srila Prabhupada's purport. He mentioned, although the ignorant man is not be disturbed in his activities, a slightly developed Krishna conscious person may directly be engaged in the service of Lord without waiting for other Vedic formulas. So sometimes we find that people are too much attached with the result of their activities. So Krishna is mentioning here that we shouldn't disturb them by asking them to stop working. Rather, we encourage them to work, and at the same time to sacrifice or to give up some result of their work in Krishna's service. So this is the qualification that people require for beginning practice of Krishna consciousness. What is that qualification? just simply engage in Krishna consciousness. So without any former purificatory process mentioned in the Vedas. So if you have some small inclination, so you can be immediately engaged in Krishna consciousness. There is one lecture by Srila Prabhupada. He was giving a lecture on the verse of in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Susosra Dadanasya. So this verse, Srila Prabhupada explained that if somebody simply appreciating our activities, oh, this devotee is doing very nice. This devotee behave very nicely. So if simply uh, they are giving their small appreciation to our Krishna consciousness movement, Prabhupada explained, that's how actually they started their devotional activities to Krishna. So gradually they will be devotee simply by giving appreciation. So Prabhupada said like that. So what is qualification to engage in Krishna service? So just engage any service you can take. One time Srila Prabhupada was giving a lecture and one drunkard came with a toilet paper and put on the table in the front of Srila Prabhupada, and then he left. And then Srila Prabhupada said, this drunkard, this soul, he has started his devotional life. Srila Prabhupada said. So this is from the Surrender Unto Me. There are 3 levels of work. Working only for the fruit. So this is called Karma Kanda. So this is demigod worship. Normally, those who are worshipping demigod, they simply wanting higher promotion to the heavenly planet to enjoy more sense gratification. And then establishing Krishna, this is the higher level, establishing Krishna as the goal, yet remaining attached to the fruits. This is Sakama Karma Yoga. So you connect yourself to Krishna, but at the same time, you still attach to the result of your activities. And then the third one, the highest level of activities of work is this one, being completely detached from the fruit of work. This is called Niskama Karma Yoga, or it is called Buddhi Yoga, or pure devotional service. Yeah. In the second form of work, though the mode of passion is still present, one advances from passion to goodness by renouncing a portion of the result of one's work. A person working in this way will gradually become detached, attain transcendental knowledge, and advance toward the transcendental platform. So the best example we can see in the fourth canto in Dhruva Maharaja's life. So in the beginning, Dhruva Maharaj, he is a Sakama devotee. He is having great material desire in his heart, but he is worshipping Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu, and gradually he becomes purified. So the second level should be very, very encouraged. Second level of work should be very, very encouraged. Although one may seems like very materialistic, but if at the same time that person engage in devotional service and giving up some small result of his work to Krishna consciousness, so he get immense purification and ultimately he will become completely pure. Text number 27. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasaha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. Translation. The spirit soul bewildered by the influence of false ego thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the 3 modes of material nature. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned a materialistic person has no knowledge that ultimately he is under the control of Krishna. The person in false ego takes all credit for doing everything independently, and that is the symptom of his nescience. So everything is under Krishna's control. Karma nadaiva netrena jantur deho papataye striya pravistamudara pumsurita kamasraya. So there's nothing by chance. We take birth in a certain family, poor family or rich family. Stupid family or learned family. Stupid family. So everything is arranged by Krishna according to our karma. Karmana Daivanetrina. So these two things. According to our karma and Krishna higher supervision. Krishna's divine supervision. So we will get what we deserve according to our karma. And everything is already allotted according to what we're supposed to get. Here Krishna explained that while the foolish conditioned soul thinks himself the doer, the one accomplishing his work, the work is actually being carried out by the three modes of material nature, the gunas. Srila Prabhupada, however, refers to an ultimate doer in his purport. So we see in Srila Prabhupada's purport, Srila Prabhupada explaining everything is done by Krishna. But this verse, of course, is talking about everything is done by the three modes of material nature. Well, ultimately, these three modes of material nature, the Prakriti, is Krishna's energy. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada is talking about Krishna here, because Krishna is the ultimate doer. Padrashta Anumanta cha Bhatta Bhokta Maheshwaram Paramatmeti cha Apyukto Dehesmin Purusha Param. So Krishna is sitting within our heart as the Upadrashta and Anumanta. Upadrashta means the uh, supervisor, and Anumanta means the sanction giver. So he sees our activities and sanction. Without his sanction, we can't do anything. Text 28. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, Almighty Yam, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work in devotion and work for fruitive result. Yeah, this is describing about devotee. A pure devotee doesn't engage in sense gratification. He engages his senses only for the service of the Lord. Yada samharati chayat kurmongani vasarvasaha indriya nindriya tasya pragya pratistita. So those who are stita pragya, if we flash back to the second um, chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the previous chapter. So the stita pragya is described just like a tortoise, kurmo angani vasarvasaha. So the tortoise will expand his limbs whenever he needs, but when he doesn't need, he will withdraw his limbs inside his body. So similarly, the devotee is also like that. We are engaging our senses only to please Krishna's senses, not otherwise. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned, the knower of the absolute truth is convinced of his awkward position in material association. He knows that he is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and that his position should not be in the material creation. What makes the difference between work in devotion and work for fruitive result is knowledge. The Tattvavit, or knower of the absolute truth. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, thinks, I am not a guna, a quality of mode of nature, nor any product of guna, nor do I have any connection with any of the gunas or the products of the gunas. He is, as Srila Prabhupada states, convinced of his awkward position in material association. So this is our constitutional position. Yaya samohito jiva atmanam triguna atmakam paropi manutenatham tatkritam chabipadyate. So this verse quoted by Srila Prabhupada many times in his lecture. Yaya samohito jiva. So the bewildered living entity, samohito jiva, atmanam triguna atmakam. He's thinking that he's the product of the material nature. He's the guna. I am the guna. But Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentioned here that those who are tattva, the seer, the absolute seer, the knower of the absolute truth, they know that I'm not the guna, a quality or mode of nature. But those who are bewildered, samohita jiva, the bewildered living entities, think that I'm the product of this material nature. But in actuality, paropi manute, paropi means we are beyond this concept, bodily concept, like we are the spiritual part and parcel of Krishna. Tat kritam javipadyati. When we know this fact that we are not product of this material world, so we are actually aloof. We become aloof from this material world and can be freed from whatever so-called material happiness and distress. Text number 29. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although although these duties are inferior of due to performers' lack of knowledge. Purport: men who are ignorant cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Lord Krishna advises us not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. So one of the 10 offenses against the holy name is that to try to preach the glories of the holy name to the non-believer. But Srila Prabhupada explained that the devotees in general, they follow rules and regulation. Whatever Krishna says, they will follow. But there's one order that the devotees, they don't like to follow. And what is that? Preach to the non-believer. Because they will blaspheme Krishna when we preach. But as a devotees are actually more merciful than Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is conquered by his devotees. Out of his compassionate nature, the devotee. So they will, they keep preaching, like Nityananda Prabhu, the example. They preach to Jaga and Madai. But the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord. Oh yeah, here it is, the continuation, Srila Prabhupada mentioned. Because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risk, even to the point of approaching ignorant men, try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for the human being. Like Jagai, Madai, Nityananda Prabhu is preaching. Text number 30. Mayi sarvani karmani sanyasya dyatmachetasa nirasya nirmamo bhutva yudhashva vigata jvaraha. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your work unto me, with full of knowledge of me, without desire for fruit, without desires for profit, with no claim to proprietorship, and free from liturgy, fight. So these are two important words in this verse, nirasi and nirmama. Nirasi means without desire for profit, and nirmama means without ownership. Prabhupada gave an analogy in his purport. The cashier may count millions of dollars for his employer, but he does not claim a cent for himself. Similarly, one has to realize that nothing in the world belongs to any individual person, but that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. Isavashyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatam jagat tena tyak tena bhunjita amagrida kashyasvidana. So this is uh, the principle actually. Isavashyam idam sarvam. Everything is owned and belong and controlled by Lord Krishna. Isha, Isha Avashyam Idam Sarvam. That's actually one of the peace formula when we know that Krishna is the ultimate proprietor. What is it? Sarvaloka Maheshwara. Therefore, why there are so many wars, taking place, you know, in the world, because they don't understand this principle, Isavasya principle. So they wanted to encroach God's property, wanted to enjoy more and more, greedy. Magridao Kasyasvidanam. That verse in Sri Sopanishad explains Magridao Kasyasvidanam. That means do not take whatever you don't need. You can take only whatever your quota, which is allotted to you, not more than your quota. Okay, we have 5 more verses to go. Text number 31. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunction and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of furtive action. Report: the injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom and therefore is eternally true without exception. Vedaisa sarvair aham eva vedyo vedanta krit veda vedeva chaham. So this is the essence of all the Vedic scriptures. To know Krishna, Vedaisa sarvair aham eva vedyo. To know Krishna is the ultimate goal of studying the Vedas. Therefore, Krishna mentioned also in the 19th verse of the 15th chapter, what he said, Yomam evam ashamudo janati purushatama sasarvavid bhajante imam sarva bhavena bharata. So, sasarvavid bhajante Yomam evam asamudo. So, those who are not bewildered, they will worship Krishna. Janati Purushottama. They know that Krishna is the Purushottama, the ultimate Purusha, the ultimate enjoyer is Krishna. When they know this, they will worship Krishna. Sasarva vid bhajante emam. Those who worship Krishna, they are sarvavid. They know everything in the Vedic scriptures. Sasarva vid bhajante emam. Sarva bhavena bharata. With all their bhava, sarva bhavena. With all their love, bhava, they worship Krishna. Milkman, please open the door. Just tell 1 minute. Sorry, milkman came. Sarva bhavena bharata. So bhava, Krishna is known as the bhava grahi janardhan. He is seeing our essence, the heart, the essence of our heart. He's seeing our bhava. He's not seeing what we offer, but he's seeing that in what attitude we are offering it, how we offer it. So sometimes it is more matter how we offer it than what we offer. Yeah. So this is the essence of all Vedas, to worship Krishna ultimately. In the lecture, Srila Prabhupada said, so when a man comes to this knowledge that I am serving, so why not serve the Supreme? This is knowledge. This is perfection of knowledge. Nobody can be freed from being a servant. Either you become servant of God or you become a servant of dog. You must be a servant. So the intelligent person, a wise person, he prefers to servant of God instead of becoming servant of dog. Yeah. So this is a heavy lecture actually by Srila Prabhupada. Ultimately, this is our constitutional position as a servant. Whether we are a president or a king, still in that position, people wanting to get such a position, to be a president, to be the topmost person in the country, but actually he is also serving the whole society. He works very hard, like a father also. A father is considered to be a master in a family, but he's working so hard to maintain the family. That means he's serving the family, serving the wife, serving the kids. So ultimately, we are servant, and there are two choices. Srila Prabhupada mentioned here, whether we are serving God or serving dog. Text 32. But those who out of envy disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. In a lecture, Srila Prabhupada said, therefore, one who disagrees to become servant of God, he is befooled. It is said, but those who, out of envy, he is constitutionally servant, but he is envious. Why shall I become God's servant? I shall become God. You see, everyone is claiming, oh, everyone is God. Why? What is the use of becoming servant of God? I am God. So this is enviousness. Icha dvesa samutena dvandva mohena bhavata. Icha means material desire. Dvesa means envious. So we come to this material world because we are envious that why only Krishna is God. I also want to become controller, want to become God. So we are here in this material world. We are acting as a controller, acting as a God in some level, in some quantity. Whether we are small God or big God, but we want to be God. We want to be a controller. Therefore, we are here. Text 33. Even the man of knowledge acts according to his own nature. For everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? Sometimes question may raise, if we all are helplessly forced to act according to our natures, what is the use of many rules in the Shastra to regulate our activities? So this question may raise that if ultimately the three modes is doing whatever we do, then why do we need some rules and regulation? Why do we need to follow scriptures? Why? Because ultimately everything is done by the three modes of material nature. So the next verse will give the answer. Text 34. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. Srila Prabhupada explained in the purport, those who are in Krishna consciousness are naturally reluctant to engage in material sense gratification, but those who are not in such consciousness should follow the rules and regulation of the revealed scriptures. Ayad vachas chitra padam harirasa. Jagat pavitram pragrinita karchi. Tadvaya samtirtamu santi manasa. Nayatra hamsa niramanti siksaya. So the non-devotees, they love to talk any topic which is not related to Krishna consciousness. And those who are Paramahamsa, the devotees, Niramanti Siksaya. Niramanti, they don't derive any pleasure from such kind of mundane topic. Unrestricted sense enjoyment is the cause of material engagement, but one who follows the rules and regulation of the revealed scriptures does not become entangled by the sense object. So yes, ultimately, we are forced to act according to our nature, derived from which mode is more influencing our mind. But we should have some determination also to follow some rules and regulation in the Shastra. That's actually for our ultimate good, for our ultimate benefit. Because when we just listening to our monkey-like mind, I would say like that, monkey-like mind for sense verification will become more entangled, as what Srila Prabhupada mentioned here. Of course, ultimately, the modes of material nature is the doer. We are not the doer. But as far as spiritual advancement is concerned, we also have to make some endeavor for our own liberation from material entanglement. And it's actually started from following rules and regulation in the Shastra. Therefore, in spite of regulated sense enjoyment, there is every chance of falling down. Therefore, any attachment for regulated sense enjoyment must also be avoided by all means. In the beginning, I was giving the example like the grihastas. The grihastas are allowed to have sexual intercourse, but that should be sexual intercourse is allowed, but it should be within marriage. That means we are following rules and regulation. But even then also, so this is called regulated sense enjoyment. But even this kind of regulated sense enjoyment also should be ultimately given up, because by having this kind of regulated sense enjoyment, we also deriving some material pleasure, and we become attached to this kind of pleasure. Therefore, it should be given up thoroughly, ultimately. This is an analogy given by Srila Prabhupada, very famous. One has to follow those rules and regulations, unattached to them, because practice of sense gratification under regulations may also lead one to go astray, as much as there is always a chance of an accident even on the roads. Last verse, finally. Sriyam swadharma viguna paradharmat swanustita. Swadharme nidhanam sreya paradharmo bhaya vahaha. We will find this also. Sriyam swadharma viguna paradharmat swanustita. In the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Translation. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duty perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duty, for to follow another's path is dangerous. When one is under the spell of the modes of material nature, one should follow the prescribed rules for his particular situation and should not imitate others. You see, Arjuna, he wanted to become sannyas. He wanted to run away from the battle. It's not that because he is a coward, but he's soft-hearted. He's soft-hearted. This is one of the quality of a great devotee. But it is not correct at all, because he belongs to the Kshatriya family, and he is a Kshatriya by nature, Arjuna. So he must do his duty, protect the weak. The very meaning of Kshatriya, Ksat and Trayate. Trayate means deliver. Ksat means harm or hurt. So it is the duty of Kshatriya to protect those who are those who are being harmed. Well, in that case, actually, their family, brothers, Pandava, his family, sorry, Arjuna's family was, mistreated by Kurava. So he has to fight, against the adharma to establish dharma. However, when one transcends the modes of material nature and is fully situated in Krishna consciousness, he can perform anything and everything under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. In that complete stage of Krishna consciousness, a Kshatriya may act as Brahmana, or a Brahmana may act as Kshatriya. Well, we see Arjuna is a great devotee. He is completely transcendental. So we may argue also that he can do whatever he wants. He can be a Brahmana, he can be a sannyasi, whatever, because he is a great devotee. But if we see again Srila Prabhupada's purport here, Prabhupada means he can perform anything and everything under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. And Arjuna is asking Krishna in the second chapter, text number 7. Arjuna said that Sishyaseham sadimam tuam prapanam. So he surrender to Krishna. He's asking Krishna to become his spiritual master. So what his spiritual master said, you fight. Therefore Arjuna said fight. Okay, this is the last slide of this presentation. Academically, one may be very learned, but because of his long association with material nature, he is in bondage. Krishna consciousness helps one to get out of the material entanglement. So ultimately, Krishna consciousness is the only solution uh, to give us freedom, ultimate freedom from this material bondage. So Krishna consciousness is the only hope, actually. Okay, so in this class we have finally covered how from karma kanda one can be upgraded to the level of karma yoga. And then in the second part of our discussion is that regarding the karma yoga or the touch work. This is also called as niskama karma. So there is sakama and there is also niskama. Sakama means when one still have desire to enjoy the result of his activities, but at the same time he's engaging himself in Krishna consciousness. He's sacrificing something, some of the result of his activities for Krishna, but he's still attached to his the fruit of his activities. But niskama means one who is already situated on the pure platform. He simply engaged in some activities and he offered the result to Krishna without expecting any material enjoyment, without expecting any result from his activities. So he's doing it out of, performing his swadharma in Krishna consciousness. Okay, thank you very much. If you have some question or comments, we can take it in our next class. Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna. Oh yeah, please don't forget to make a research why Sukadev Goswami was described in the Srimad Bhagavatam as impersonalist in the beginning. So I'm hoping to hear from all of you. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha. Kripa sindhu vacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.